Greetings, welcome back to Blackburn News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change. And I'm just going to continue bringing evidence that things are not looking good. So this news will probably not be very uplifting. Thank you all for your comments and your discussion, sticking with me through all my my political / sociological meanderings, philosophical meanderings. There'll be more, don't you worry. I'm going to start with this article. Oh, thank you all for continuing to just send me really great stuff. And Imogen, you are actually you've dropped a couple of really great things in the comment section, and I keep forgetting to read them. So I promise to. I'm seeing your really good information that you're dropping, and I'm not. I appreciate it. I just haven't figured out how to get my brain into reading your comments, and I'm sorry. We'll try to get to one of those tonight. I'm going to start with this article from Business Insider. One of the largest banks issued an alarming warning that Earth is running out of the resources to sustain life. One of the world's largest banks says the planet is running out of resources and warns that neither governments nor companies are prepared for climate change. The world spent its entire natural resource budget for the year by August 1st. A group of analysts at HSBC said in a note that cited research from the Global Footprint Network, or GFN. That means that the world's citizens used up all the planet's resources for the year in just 7 months, according to GFN's analysis. In our opinion, these findings and events show that many businesses and governments are not adequately prepared for climate impacts, nor are they using natural resources efficiently, the HSBC analysts said in the note. Many banks and asset managers have started factoring climate risks into their decision-making, a move spurred in part by former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. But it's far less common to see multinational banks sound the alarm about climate change so explicitly in their equity research. To calculate Earth's natural resource budget, GFN considers the demand for natural resources, which includes food, forests, and marine products, as well as humans' effects on the environment from factors like carbon emissions. That's very interesting. The combined total is designed to give a comprehensive picture of humanity's global footprint. Earth Overshoot Day, the point in a year at which we use up a year's worth of resources, has been steadily moving forward in time since GFN first started tracking it. In 1970, we overshot Earth's resource budget by only 2 days. Overshoot Day fell on December 29th, according to HSBC. That date has been pushed up by almost 5 months since then. HSBC's note also warned about extreme events resulting from heat, including the wildfires in Scandinavia and broken temperature records around the world. So this is very interesting because what if stock markets, before there's even a collapse, what if the collapse is caused by stock markets or, stocks starting to be devalued or valuated based on the fact that there's just diminishing returns now. There's nothing left. The future, there's nothing about the future to bank on or to make a prediction on. So just devalue everything. Could that be very likely in our near future? As scientists work on attribution analysis for specific events, the general consensus is that climate change is making these events more likely to occur and more severe, HSBC said. The predicted effects of climate change are starting to become real. Wildfires have torn through California in recent years, and they're part of a worsening trend related to rising global temperatures. Other consequences include increased frequency of hurricanes and flooding, melting ice sheets, and greater number of heat waves. Recent studies have shown that global temperatures by the year 2100 could be up to 15% higher, okay, than the highest projections from the Intergovernmental Panel. Okay, so as long as they use 2100, they're fine. I mean, they can't devalue anything, right? According to HSBC, extreme events have severe economic and social costs. In our view, adaptation will move further up the agenda with a growing focus on these social consequences, the analyst said. It's a very interesting article. You know, but what if they start analyzing the reality that we're done by 2035? That's it, guys. We're taking the piss out of everything. Next up on the agenda is from Forbes, another business news site. Think it's hot now? Wait until we reach Hothouse Earth. It's getting hotter all over the planet. This week, the temperature in Bar Harbor, Maine reached 91 Fahrenheit or 32.8 C. In my 20 years vacationing here, this is easily the hottest weather I've ever experienced. And I've talked to a few people vacationing in Maine, like right now, or in recent times, and talking about how downright hot it is up there. Up and down the U.S. East Coast, cities are sweltering. Temperatures out west are even hotter, with California seeing all-time high temperatures, including the hottest July on record in some areas, which has fed damaging fires across the state. Death Valley is always hot, but this week has been crazy, with temperatures on August 7th reaching 122 Fahrenheit or 50 C. At the same time, Europe is baking under a heat dome that has brought unprecedented high temperatures, including 45 C, 113 Fahrenheit in Portugal. It's so hot that people aren't even going to the beach. Global warming is here, folks. I know we're supposed to call it climate change because it's much more complex than simply warming, but warming is one of the most obvious consequences. Thank you, Forbes, or whoever wrote this article. And yes, a single heat wave doesn't prove anything. And weather is not the same as climate, I know. But a just released study from Oxford University found that climate change made this summer's heat wave in Europe twice as likely. And now a new study published last week in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences says it could get much worse, much hotter if we don't do something about it. In this paper, an international team of climate scientists led by Will Steffen and Hans Joachim Schellnhuber explained that thanks to human activities, the planet is well on its way to a hothouse Earth scenario. In a hothouse Earth, global average temperatures would rise 4 to 5 C or 7 to 9 Fahrenheit, and sea levels will rise 10 to 60 meters, 33 to 200 feet above today's levels. This would be catastrophic for many aspects of modern civilization. Many agricultural regions would become too hot and arid to sustain crops, making it impossible to feed large swaths of humanity. Low-lying coastal areas would disappear or become uninhabitable without massive engineering efforts, displacing hundreds of millions of people, as Steffen et al. Put it. The impacts of a hothouse Earth pathway on human societies would likely be massive, sometimes abrupt, and undoubtedly disruptive. That's putting it mildly. One reason this scenario is happening, as the study explains, is that we are very close to tipping points, beyond which certain changes cannot be stopped. We may have already passed some of them, as in we did. These include losing the Arctic ice cap, probably next week, in the summer, and losing the Greenland ice sheet permanently because they are basically white. These massive expanses of ice serve as giant reflectors to send much of the sun's heat back into space. Without the ice, the darker planet's surface absorbs more heat, creating a positive feedback effect. Another example is melting of the permafrost, land that has been frozen for thousands of years, and that contains a great deal of carbon in the form of methane. Once that methane is released, it will create further warming. We are also likely to lose the Amazon rainforest, all of our coral reefs, and huge swaths of boreal forest. If this seems grim, Stefan and colleagues point out that we still have time to avoid it. Let's see how they propose this. They propose that societies must act collectively to create a stabilized Earth at no more than 2°C above pre-industrial levels, which is possible, but not easy. Stabilized Earth will require deep cuts in greenhouse gas emissions, protection and enhancement of biosphere carbon sinks. Efforts to remove CO2 from the atmosphere, possibly solar radiation management, and adaptation to unavoidable impacts of the warming already occurring. Okay, all those things sound right on the money. I didn't hear anything about completely, what was it, a planned retreat from overpopulation, or a planned retreat from capitalism, or etc. Planned retreat from air travel, planned retreat from shipping. I didn't hear any of those things proposed. None of this is beyond our abilities. We know that we need to do it, but it requires large-scale coordinated action, as in completely upending our entire paradigm. How about that? Coordinated action that many governments must agree on if it's to have an impact. They must agree right now to stop the use of fossil fuels worldwide. They must agree right now to limit on births per family to 1 or possibly 2. They must agree right now to nationalizing every single industrial activity and basically outlawing all corporations, making their charters null and void. Unfortunately, humans and our governments tend to do nothing until faced with an emergency. It's because they're not living in reality. And the tipping points leading to a hothouse Earth may not look like emergencies, not at first. For example, Arctic sea ice has been declining steadily for 25 years or more, but because few people are aware of this, or they don't care, or they're not looking, and even fewer experience it firsthand, it doesn't seem urgent, yet it is. So perhaps this summer's heat wave can serve as a wake-up call that we need to pay more attention to our planet's health. Otherwise, it's going to get a lot hotter. How about the fact that we're going to start running out of food? That'll be a really big wake-up call. And I don't want that to happen, because that's not going to be very pretty. In fact, it's going to be the opposite of pretty. It's going to be, as Jennifer Hine says, I'm good. Had something else in here for you. Staying on the subject of global warming. Global warming seems to be talked about quite a bit lately. The phrase is back in vogue, global warming, and I love it. This graphic, I don't love global warming, I love the phrase global warming. This graphic explains why 2 degrees of global warming will be way worse than 1.5. You can't see this graphic, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to link this below and you can look at it with your eyeballs. Signatories to the Paris Climate Agreement, every country in the world, unless and until the US drops out in 2020, agreed to what is now a familiar goal, holding the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2°C, above pre-industrial levels, and pursuing efforts to limit the temperature's increase. The temperature increased to 1.5°C. How important is that difference, though? How much worse would 2 degrees be than 1.5? Is it worth the extra effort? And it would be a truly heroic effort to limit temperature rise to that lower target. Would it be a truly heroic effort? Yes, it would. It's been difficult to answer those questions. Not that difficult. In part because they are value-laden and incredibly complex, but also due to a paucity of research. That is a great word, paucity. Sparseness, a lack. While there's been a great deal of work done on the difference between, say, 2 and 4 degrees warming, which would be catastrophic, There's been less modeling around 1.5 and no comprehensive comparison of 1.5 to 2. Happily, a 2016 study in the journal Earth System Dynamics tackles this directly. Over at Carbon Briefs, Roz Pidcock has a great rundown on the study that gets into the background and some of the implications. Best of all, the team at Carbon Brief, which you should really bookmark, has compiled the relevant comparisons in the study into a single, clear, aesthetically pleasing graphic. Heat waves at 1.5 C will be 1.1 months, and at 2 C, 1.5 months. Freshwater, down 9% at 1.5, down 17% at 2 C. Heavy rainfall, up 5% at 1.5 C, up 7%. I don't even really believe these numbers very much, but I'm going to continue reading them. Crop yields down 9%, wheat, 16% wheat, 1.5 versus 2. Maize down 3% at 1.5, down 6% at 2. Soy up 6% at 1.5, up 7% at 2. Interesting. Rice production up 6% at 1.5, up 6% at 2. Sea level rise up 40 centimeters at 1.5 and 50 centimeters at 2. Coral bleaching 90% at 1.5, 98% at 2. I don't know, that doesn't sound like a lot worse, honestly. It sounds bad at 1.5 and 2 just a little more bad. It's like a weather forecast from hell. 2 degrees would be much worse than 1.5 in some places. Around the Mediterranean, freshwater availability will drop by almost twice as much at 2 degrees as at 1.5. That's the worst part, I guess. Some high latitude regions may benefit from the difference. Coral reefs, though, are pretty screwed no matter what. A lot of people think that we're already at 1.5 or past 1.5. So I just, what do we do about that? What do we do about the fact that we probably are possibly closer to 2 already? That's what I'd like to know. What are we going to do about the fact that we're losing crops right now? Today, 2018. What do we do about those apples? All right, I found a couple of the comments from Imogen that I wanted to read because they're rather scary. She put a couple of news articles or little tidbits in the comments section. Epidemic hazard in Spain on August 10th. This is truly frightening. A man has died in Spain after being bitten by a tick while he was out hunting. Blood tests confirmed the tick was carrying the Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever virus. The 74-year-old man died in Avila after being bit by a tick in Helichosa de los Montes in the province of Badajoz. I don't know. I think I got it. CCHF outbreaks have a case fatality rate of up to 40%, and there is no vaccine available for either people or animals. The Ministry of Health in Castilla y León said it believed the man had been bitten while hunting in the forest of the area. Doctors quickly implemented the protocols once the virus infection was confirmed, but they could not save the man's life. Authorities have worked to identify possible contacts that the man might have had and are periodically monitoring their body temperatures and any changes in their usual state of health. Human-to-human transmission can occur from close contact with blood, secretions, organ, or other bodily fluids of infected persons. The incubation period following contact with infected blood or tissue is usually 5 to 6 days with a documented maximum of 13 days. Onset of symptoms is sudden with fever, myalgia, dizziness, neck pain, and stiffness, backache, headache, sore eyes, and photophobia, sensitivity to light. There may be nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, and sore throat early on, followed by sharp mood swings and confusion. After 2 to 4 days, the agitation may be replaced by sleepiness, depression, and lassitude, and the abdominal pain may localize to the upper right quadrant with detectable hepatomegaly. I don't know. Liver enlargement is what that means. This word that I can't say. Hepatomegaly. I don't know. Never seen that before. That word. Liver enlargement. That's not good. And moving over to China, biological hazard in China on August 10th. A total of 255 sheep have been slaughtered following a suspected outbreak of anthrax in Jiamusi City, northeast China's Heilongjiang province. According to the Animal Disease Prevention and Control Center of Hunan County in Jiamusi, newly purchased sheep from the province's Kitahi City died from suspected anthrax at a local breeding site. Hunan authorities promptly launched an emergency response plan, implementing a series of measures to disinfect the area and prevent the spread of the deadly disease. All those who had close contact with the sheep have been quarantined, with one diagnosed with suspected infection by the virus and another whose diagnosis has not been confirmed. The county said that the outbreak has been effectively controlled without spreading. Hunan's neighboring county, Yilan, also intensified efforts to prevent possible contamination. A farmer in Fuquantong village had his 255 sheep, including 190 bought from Hunan, slaughtered. Not good. On top of losing crops, there have been quite a few countries who have had to kill, not due to anthrax, but due to starvation and lack of water, have had to kill quite a few head of cattle and other animals. So we're losing food that way too. Did I read this? I did not read this article. One more article about heat taking us out. This is from sciencealert.com. We're going to die in record numbers as heat waves bake the world. This is from August 2nd. For some reason it says first global study shows. Really? Mounting science is painting a very bleak picture of bleak picture of a future of soaring temperatures and the accompanying death toll those soaring temperatures will demand. New research has given us the first solid prediction of how more heat waves like the one that struck Europe this year, will affect future death rates. Finding tropical heat waves in some areas could one day send the mortality rate skyrocketing by as much as 2,000%. I feel like I read something, or maybe something like the same article. So maybe I won't read this. Yeah. This is just a reprint of another article that I already read, basically saying that we're not in good shape, and we're not going to be in good shape. The likelihood that we're going to be in worse shape very soon is nigh. Well nigh. Guys, I think that might be all, except for this last article I wanted to link below. I don't think I'm going to read the whole thing. I'm just kind of going to skim through it because I think y'all are going to get the idea. This is from the New York Times, how record heat wreaked havoc on 4 continents. We talked to people who found themselves on the front lines of climate change this year. Here are their stories. This is from July 30th, 2018, by Somani Sengupta, Tiffany May, and Zia Ur-Rehman. Expect more, that's the verdict of climate scientists to the record high temperatures this spring and summer in vastly different climate zones. The contiguous United States had its hottest month of May and the 3rd hottest month of June. Japan was walloped by record triple-digit temperatures, killing at least 86 people in what its meteorological agency bluntly called a disaster. And weather stations logged record high temperatures at the edge of the Sahara and above the Arctic Circle. Is it because of climate change? Scientists with the World Weather Attribution Project concluded in a study released Friday that the likelihood of the heat wave currently baking Northern Europe is more than 2 times higher today than if human activities had not altered the climate. While attribution studies are not yet available for other record heat episodes this year, scientists say there's little doubt that the ratcheting up of global greenhouse gases makes heat waves more frequent and more intense. Elena Manenkova, deputy head of the World Meteorological Organization, said this year was shaping up to be one of the hottest years on record and that the extreme heat recorded so far was not surprising in light of climate change. This is not a future scenario, she said. It is happening now. What was it like to be in these really different places on these really hot days? We asked people, here's what we learned. Ouargla, Algeria. 124 Fahrenheit on July 5th. At 3 p.m. on the first Thursday in July, on the edge of the vast Sahara, the Algerian oil town of Ouargla recorded a high of 124 degrees Fahrenheit. Even for this hot country, it was a record, according to Algeria's National Meteorological Service. Abdelmalek Bibek Agshali Salih was at work in a petroleum plant on the outskirts of Ouargla that day. He and the rest of his crew had heard it would be hot. They had to be at work by 7 a.m., part of a regular 12-hour daily shift. We couldn't keep up, he recalled. It was impossible to do the work. It was hell. By 11 a.m., he and his colleagues walked off the job. But when they got back to the workers' dorms, things weren't much better. The power had gone out. There was no air conditioning, no fans. He dunked his blue cotton scarf in the water, wrung it out, and wrapped it around his head. He drank water. He bathed 5 times. At the end of the day, I had a headache, he said by phone. I was tired. Ouargla's older residents told him they'd never seen a day so hot. Hong Kong, over 91 Fahrenheit for 16 straight days. And I'm sure that's hot for them because they're probably, there's much more humidity there than there is here, but in Los Angeles, I can tell you that it's been over 91 degrees for more than 16 straight days. In this city of skyscrapers on the edge of the South China Sea, temperatures soared past 91 degrees Fahrenheit for 16 consecutive days in the second half of May. Not since Hong Kong started keeping track in 1884 had a heat wave of that intensity lasted so long in May. Swimming pools overflowed with people. Office air conditioners purred. From morning to night, some of the city's most essential laborers went about their outdoor work, hauling goods, guarding construction sites, picking up trash. One blistering morning, a 55-year-old woman named Lynn gripped the hot metal handles of her handcart. She pushed it up a busy road, glancing over her shoulder for oncoming cars. She had fresh, leafy greens to deliver to neighborhood restaurants in the morning, trash to haul in the evening. Some days she had a headache. Other days she vomited. It's very hot and I sweat a lot, said Lynn, who would only give her first name before rushing off on her rounds. But there's no choice. I have to make a living. Hun Siu Sing, a 50-year-old trash collector, tossed garbage bags into a mounting pile. Sweat plastered the shirt onto his back. I don't feel anything, he maintained. I'm a robot, used to the heat of the sun and rain. Nawabshah, Pakistan, 122 Fahrenheit on April 30th. Nawabshah is in the heart of Pakistan's cotton country, but no amount of cotton could provide comfort on the last day of April when temperatures soared past 122 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius. Even by the standards of this blisteringly hot place, it was a record. The streets were deserted that day. A local journalist named Zulfikar Kashkeli said, and shops didn't bother to open. Taxi drivers kept off the streets to avoid the blazing sun. And so Riaz Sumro had to scour his neighborhood for a cab that could take his ailing 62-year-old father to a clinic. The government hospital was packed. In the hallway sat worn-out heat stroke victims like his father. Many of them had been working outdoors as day laborers. Mr. Sumro said, throughout the area, hospitals and clinics were swamped. There weren't enough beds. There weren't enough medical staff. The power failed repeatedly throughout the day, adding to the chaos. We tried our best to provide medical treatment, said Rez Jamali, a paramedic in Daur, a village on the outskirts of Nawabshah. But because of the severity of the heat, there was unexpected rush, and it was really difficult for us to deal with all the patients. Every day that week, the high temperature in Nawabshah was no less than 113 degrees, according to AccuWeather. Ouch. Man, that's hot. Oslo, over 86 Fahrenheit for 16 consecutive days. Warning, we remind you about the total ban on fires and barbecuing near the forest and on the islands. This was a text message that Oslo residents got from city officials on Friday afternoon in June. May had been the warmest in 100 years. June was hot too. By mid-July, a village south of Oslo recorded 19 days when the temperature shot past 86 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius, according to Met Norway. Spring rains were paltry, which meant that grass had turned brown dry and farmers have had trouble feeding their livestock. Forests had turned to tinder, and city officials put a stop to one of the most popular Norwegian summer pastimes, heading out to the woods with a disposable barbecue. People not being used to this heat. They're used to leaving a barbecue and nothing happens. Marianne Kajosnes, a spokeswoman for the Oslo Fire Department, said. Now, if a little spark catches the grass, you have a grass fire going. Public parks are off limits to barbecuing. So are the islands and nearby in the nearby fjord. Oh, I guess her name is Kjosnes. I'm still wrapping my brain around Nordic languages. I'm not so good. The Oslo Fire Department Facebook page is trying to get the word out. Per Evanson, a fire watchman, posted in the tower on Linkleppen, a rocky hill southeast of Oslo, counted 11 separate forest fires in one day in early July. Here and there, white smoke rose in the distance. By July 19, the Civil Protection Department had tallied 1,551 forest fires, more than the number of fires in all of 2016 and 2017. The department said 22 helicopters were simultaneously fighting fires. Wildfires were also erupting in Sweden, and one Swedish village just above the Arctic Circle hit an all-time record high, peaking above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That is ridiculous. This is really frightening if this is the new normal. Then Margrethe Saltvedt, an energy industry analyst who lives in Oslo, wrote in an email. Los Angeles, 108 Fahrenheit on July 6th. At least Marina Zurko had air conditioning. Ms. Zurko, an artist, had long been grappling with the climate change in her work, but she was still surprised when a day of extreme weather impacted one of her projects in a big way. The name of that project was designed to make people think about the impact of climate change on how we eat. Is making the best of it is only half in jest. It's both trying to make the best of a bad situation, she said, and in another way, it's a commitment to making things as delicious as possible. The latest iteration of the project was to host a dinner for a new era of dry, hot weather in California. Less Mediterranean, more Mojave Desert. Ms. Zurko's partner is a team of two private chefs called Hank and Bean, prepared an elaborate meal designed to make their guests chew on the impact of climate change. The menu included sage fritters, stuffed rabbit, flatbreads made of cricket and mealworm, and jellyfish. Lots of jellyfish. There was jellyfish crudo with a Greek salad at the top of the meal. There was a jellyfish jelly with redwood tip infusion and pine syrup at the end of the meal. Why jellyfish? Because it's considered invasive and therefore plentiful. Ms. Zerko reasoned. It's also zero fat and good protein. American dream food, she added, only half in jest. Also only half in jest. They had planned to serve dinner al fresco in the courtyard of a downtown Los Angeles test kitchen, but nature had other ideas. That day, the first Friday of July, air from the Mojave blew westward and stalled, compressed and extra hot over Los Angeles. Downtown hit a high of 108 degrees. It was too hot to eat outside. Even if you're talking about climate change, you can't torture invited guests, Ms. Zerko said. We had to move the dinner into the kitchen. And that is the end of that article. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. I hope to see you tomorrow with another video. Until next time, peace.